Les gens font marrer quand ils disent « Oh, vos néons, c'est violent, c'est dur, dans notre civilisation qui est si dure, si violente. » Tu parles violente, dure, peut-être au Biafra puis au Vietnam, mais pour nous, on a les fesses dans la mousse, les yeux derrière des lunettes de soleil.
What you see is not what you get with François Morellet's work. Behind the seemingly stern and organized geometry lies a world of humor, inventive systems that favor chance and infinite plays with lines and words. The poet Kenneth Goldsmith wrote, Morellet queered the straight lines of conceptualism, skewing them more towards irrational pataphysics than toward logical mathematics. Morellet has been described as one of the explorers of minimalism and conceptual art, a visionary, experimental, cheerful, rigorously fun, vibratory, the funniest conceptual artist, a self-taught artist whose curiosity was equaled only by his audacity. Although he claimed his biggest inspirations were Pi and the phone book, he was also impressed by artists such as Theo van Doesburg, Max Bill, Hans Arp and Sophie Teuber Arp, architectures such as the Alhambra in Granada, oceanic tapas, geometrically patterned fabrics, and particularly the humor of French author and member of the incoherent group Alphonse Allais. Of Mondrian, Morellet said, "I owe him so much that if I had to repay him, I would go bankrupt." The critic Hannah Weitemeyer described Morellet as an irreverent child of the suprematist and constructivist movements, and indeed, he drew on the lessons of concrete art from Van Doesburg and Max Bill. Geometric, universal, non-mystical paintings resulting from a methodology fully preconceived before execution. His entire body of work thus relies on applying systems in order to exonerate himself from the beauty of the composition. What interests me are the systems found in Mondrian, Duchamp and Steve Reich. My system is formidable. It will do anything. Whatever I do that comes out of it is always going to be good. In fact, the results are so brilliant that Morellet has to show his working so as not to be suspected of cheating his own system. In 1958, he created a 6-panel painting reflecting the number pi. These were grids into which he painted the even numbers in white and odd numbers in black. This resulted in 6 distinct random paintings, including 2 monochromes, now in the permanent collection of the Centre Pompidou, and aptly titled 6 random repetitions of 4 white and black squares over 6 square surfaces, following the even and odd numbers of pi. A masterpiece about which Morellet would have said that Pi was the author. In the aftermath of World War II, Morellet was a so-called Zazu, a young man fond of freedom, listening to jazz and living barefoot. At the start of his practice, he claimed to have applied paint to his clothes in order to present as an artist. But by 1961, well before the requirements set by minimalist or conceptual artists, he was removing signs of his own hand in his art by working with serigraphy and neons. Objecting the notion of the demiurge of romantic Promethean artist mythology, Morellet founded the movement Grave alongside others such as Julio Leparc, François and Vera Molnar, Francisco Sobrino. Grave aimed to produce environments that stimulated the spectator into participation. According to the Fluxus artist Robert Filliou, it's the artist's job to make the onlooker genius. Morellet considered that the onlooker provides half of the work, and from as early as 1963 prompted playful audience participation with his neon works. The dashes shape squares, bars, crosses, or sometimes words. Here, no, dumb, rubbish, and, well, I'd rather not translate that. This notion of systems applied to art produces random shapes and is an anticipation of artificial intelligence and of the binary aesthetic of pixels. From 1968, after 8 years of creating environments, neons blazed in jolly labyrinth with the Grave, Morellet returned to his individual production. He defined 5 systems for his paintings and is keen to combine them: juxtaposition, superposition, chance, interference, fragmentation. This resulted in grids, meshes, dashes, and crossing lines, of which the result should be understood by the means of the chosen process described in the title of the work. François Morellet was born in Cholet, small town in western France, living and working there his whole life. Up until 1975, he was in charge of his family's factory and considered himself to be moonlighting on evenings and weekends as an artist. He would load his paintings into the trunk of his car and drive to Paris, Germany, and the Netherlands for his exhibitions. He was in fact quite isolated from the French and international art scenes, and yet forged relationships with Lucio Fontana, who was one of his first collectors, and Piero Manzoni, with whom he exchanged 2 cans of shit for one of his artworks. Jesus Rafael Soto introduced him to Victor Vasarely. He exchanged with Ellsworth Kelly, Julio Leparc, Gianni Colombo. He also met Joseph Albers, Max Bill. They all shared a common sense of creative purpose as artists working not long after World War II. Committed radicals within an art scene that was both casual and inventive. However, geographically isolated, he has had 540 solo shows to this day and participated in 2,750 group shows that took him to prominent museums around the world. Today, Morellet is recognized as one of the most facetious artists in the line of Dada, Fluxus, the incoherence. He plays with twisting the figurative into abstraction or abstraction into the figurative. His taste for wordplays can often be found in his titles when he invents palindromes, noeneans, senile lines, or puns, geometries. This taste for derision is particularly palpable in his 3-dimensional interventions, where geometry finds itself shifted. He intervened with classical sculptures and buildings such as the Louvre, and with what is to me a monument of 20th century art, he himself.